Welcome, guys, to a new part of the global supply chain discussions. This is your host, Samajit Parida, and being a data analyst, I have gathered all the points to the best of my knowledge. Well, the third point that we will be looking at is very peculiar, and it's my own thought process. It is trying to over cheap and trying to be over efficient could be one of the contributing factor towards the downfall. Okay, so this point is backed by some facts. I don't know whether it's a valid point or not, but that I leave to the users. But this is what came to my mind. Okay, due to e-commerce, there is a high in demand, and everyone wants something fast. Further, during pandemic, the people were at home and everyone wanted to do something like people want to develop their habits or they want to learn something new, like people want to learn how to bike. They also want their people are working from home, so they wanted their office to be at home, so all the accessories and all the equipment they needed at home. People started new hobbies like baking, cooking, gym, and means everyone wanted many things at their home only. So that's why e-commerce took a boom. Whereas people were thinking, or it was expected that e-commerce will take a downfall during the pandemic, but the opposite happened. Okay, so there is a surge in demand, like a high surge in demand. Okay, for that to support that factor. So there are new tactics involved, like overloading a ship with additional containers, making the ships of bigger size. This is not a new technique that the ships are bigger size, but this is happening now. Like ships are getting bigger and overloading with containers, many things are happening, but there is a downside. Overloading a container would lead to accidents because the containers might fall because of high wind, and making the ships very big, like evergreen, yeah, it has its own downfall also, because remember that in during I think 2021, there was a blockage happened by Evergreen, and during that blockage, it was a blockage of around 12 at Suez Canal, and around 12 days, but that lead to loss in the terms of millions and billions of US dollars. Further, a lack of manpower, and in one hand we are the transportation. There are large number of containers are being transported to the port, but there is scarcity of manpower and equipments like cranes to offload the ship. So this increases the turnaround time of ships, which is further adding to the global supply chain uh, disruption. Further, high demand has also caused cost of shipping of container from Asia to North America, as an example, more than double. Means the cost of shipping is also increasing. And at ports, the unloading of containers has slowed down, and truck drivers have been stuck by COVID-19 and forced to stay at home. So there is a scarcity of drivers as well as scarcity of operators. So there is no one to offload these ships. Okay, and there are also many other contributing factors, but this is what I thought. Okay, this could be one of the reason that massive ships, bigger ships are leading to like many accidents or damages to the products, or overloading the ship. That could be also one of the small contributing factor to global supply chain. Further, to become over cheap and over efficient, there are new strategies that are being invented, like for example, just-in-time manufacturing to limit the cost and boost the profits. Uh, well, uh, money not s- okay for For the just-in-time manufacturing strategy, uh, it states that it is not necessary to stockpile 30% of dead stock or something like that. It's a strategy that deals with reducing the dead inventory and making the warehouse available with more space to have more incoming goods. It does the opposite of dead stock analysis and stockpiling unneeded auto parts in the intention of supplying in the future. So thing is that the strategy is a good, but it could be a necessary evil also. For example, an excessive reliance on just-in-time manufacturing helps explain how medical staff from Indiana to Italy found themselves attending COVID 19 patients during the first pandemic without adequate protective gear. Though it, the strategy is the reverse of dead stock analysis and dead stock inventory gathering and all those things. Uh, when there was a sudden pandemic like COVID 19, there was no dead stock available in many countries. So people have, or the doctors or the nurses have to operate the patients without the necessary equipments to fight COVID. And this led to suddenly a surge of masks and sanitizers. And then suddenly the prices were inflated and a lot of scams were also happening online. It was assumed that they could depend on the web and the global shipping industry to deliver what they needed in real time and fast. And that proved a deadly miscalculation. So, it's not bad that to implement new strategies, but we have to be also do a risk analysis, co- considering all these sudden global pandemics, global epidemics like the COVID 19 and etc. Amazon failed to provide adequate stocks of masks and gloves to its warehouse workers in the United States. Okay. Some experts have warned for years that short-term shareholder interests have eclipsed prudent management in prompting companies to skimp on stockpiling goods. So stockpiling goods in earlier days were what was around 30%, 30 to 35%, but there is a positive thing and there is a trade-off in there that at one hand we want to remove or empty the warehouse to add or to bring in more new products, and the other hand we also want to keep something in reserve during any unforeseen event that is happening. For example, war also can be an unforeseen event. Capacity has increased 15%, 1500% over the last half century, and has nearly doubled over the last decade alone, according to Alliance Global Corporate and Specialty. Okay. But over reliance on these concepts have made global supply chain vulnerable to incidental risks. That is, this is what I was discussing. Like, it's okay to do experimentation with new strategies, but these new strategies could bring incidental risks. It has intensified the strains on the shipping industry, which has been overwhelmed with pandemic and its reordering of world trade. Maybe means this is what I found in means in Google and over the internet. So more research is needed. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is what my one of my best guess was that okay, this is one of the factors that is contributing to global supply chain disruption. Okay, moving forward to the next point, that is lack of migrants are also contributing to global supply chain. And how? For example, in a country, suppose let's say Netherlands. In Netherlands, the cost of driver is very expensive. There is lack of drivers. It's only 17 million population, but there are thousands of logistics industry. So getting a driver in Netherlands is super complicated. Then to fill the gap, we have to go to Poland, we have to go to Germany, we have to go to neighboring countries. But then it's only in Europe. But still, then there is lack of drivers. Statistically, it could be seen. So then we need to expand our horizon and be global. But though the politicians and politics doesn't allow or doesn't have any policy towards global migration of migrants, so a global hiring, so then it becomes difficult, and this is also, I think, one of the contributing factor towards global supply chain. Companies often rely on migrant labor when the domestic workforce is either not sufficiently large or when the jobs require highly skilled workers at low budget. Even I am also a migrant, and I studied here, and then after that I decided to work here. But I presume that the migrants are not equally paid. But that is my assumption. Maybe that is okay, but there is nothing to worry about or nothing to fight with me, anything. But this is one of my thinking. Well, as per my views, migrants tend to be hardworking, and it has been scientifically proven that lack of migrants leads to slowing down of progress in a company, in MNCs, to be very specific, not to local companies. Local companies are very small scale companies. Lack of migrants leads to hiring more domestic people, which leads to loss in competitive advantage. This is also one of the things. There should be competition always compared to companies with migrant workers. This is also I found in many research papers. Let us check this one out. Okay, here it was answered that it's a no. In fact, they create more jobs. For example, there has been a research in many countries. In UK, it is slightly less, creating jobs slightly less, but in other countries, it's more. So migrants are also responsible for creating more types of jobs. Migrants still typically face higher risks of exploitation and are less likely to voice rights violations as they lack a local social network and would typically suffer on more severe consequences if losing their job. Migrants can positively contribute to sustainable development. Examples like from being a mechanic to analyst, from being a planner to strategist, they can fill the needed gaps for an organization. Well, the companies with migrants, yeah, I don't have to say or boost anything about this. People can already find many articles on that. But this is also one of the contributing factors in global supply chain that, okay, for example, in China, there is hardly, and in many other countries, they deal everything with the locals, but locals, if compared to other companies or relative to other companies, they lack the competitive advantage because it's one way of working, whereas migrants could bring more new concepts and more new strategies. Well, I think this is also one of the contributing factor, but more research is needed here, and maybe I'm wrong, but this is also one of the causality that I think is contributing towards global supply chain disruption. Then the next point, lack of sufficient salary compensation. Okay, well, during the pandemic and before, the factories, to boost their production, they hired more workers, but they reduced the salary or kept the salary the same. And this has created a kind of uh, sorrow or dissatisfaction among the workers because with the rise in inflation, rise of prices of all the commodities and everything, and all the vegetables and many things, all the machineries, it's very difficult to sustain a living. So that is also one of the reason why people are not motivated towards their job. because they don't have sufficient compensation, and there is a lot of uh, uh, yeah, dissatisfaction at home also, because the family cannot afford to live in the city, or yeah, they have to travel a lot. There are a lot of things, and this everything affects production. Sometimes factories can't pay their workers salary during a critical situation, and this also affects because everyone, middle class family, everyone on salary is has mortgage or has EMIs, so they are dependent on the salary. And sometimes the factories or the companies can be unpredictable and they can say bankrupt. So overall, this is also, I think, one of the contributing factors to our global supply chain. So, and further research is needed on this. I found one literature, and this supports my claim little bit, but not in fully. So I would, means the description will be given, means the link to the description will be given, and people can further study to gain more knowledge. Okay, next point. Container congestion is a new risk. Let's see. We already touched upon this point, and we will discuss it again. Well, the most ideal situation for a shipping or a logistics company or a trucking company is that a planner will plan a trip from point A to point B, and if it is executed on time as per the plan, then okay, we are earning some profit. There is less cost to the company because the plans are made as such, keeping in mind what revenue we are getting and what are the elements. Because before that, with the customer, the contract is signed accordingly and the rate analysis is done. However, with slowing down of global supply chain, there are erratic events on the road. Longer waiting hours, disruptions at the ports, increasing salary of the drivers, hence the cost is increasing and the revenue remaining the same. Companies are incurring loss. Well, in the shipping, in the global supply chain case, the most critical point is the ports, and container goods are not getting offloaded, and ships have to wait to return empty, and or they have to wait for a longer time. Let's see this video.
One port. After a 2-week journey across the Pacific, most container ships end up here. I'm Carter Evans at the Port of Los Angeles. When they finally dock and unload, the containers are stacked as far as the eye can see.
So, as we saw here, that there is not much manpower because of this pandemic, and yeah, there is lack of staffing, and there is also lack of operators, and the containers are stacked there. The port, there is traffic congestion at the port, and yeah, it's a chaotic situation because the new containers which are coming, yeah, they have to wait for a longer time for getting offloaded, then the ship can return. Okay, then this was also a good article which I found regarding where are all the containers, and here they describe about the containers did not come back quickly enough as per planned, and North America faces a 40% imbalance. Well, also without adequate staffing, containers started to pile up as borders tightened, customs became more complicated to clear as well, worsening congestion, which we were discussing about. In addition, there were rapid shifts in trade lane demands that were challenging for the carriers to adapt to. Okay, so definitely there is much research is needed, and this has to be included in the cost factor while doing the cost analysis by the companies as a risk or unforeseen event. Otherwise, if they don't have this slack, then they are going to incur loss in each trip, and at the end of the budget, at the end of the financial year, there is not much money left for the shipping company to invest. With that being said, definitely there is much further research is needed in this topic, and this is also one of the contributing factors towards global supply chain. Moving forward, okay, this is the most favorite point of mine, being a data analyst, and I work with a lot of tools. I create pipelines, I do costing, I know how these logistics companies work. Well, as per my knowledge, there is indeed a lack of skilled data engineers with costing knowledge in the world of shipping as well as in the world of trucking. So, because after bachelor's, yeah, people just enter into global supply chain market and kind of do some dashboarding. But yeah, nobody likes to give pain in creating more insights and supporting the management. And also that the management, in the management, the old people are there, they lack sufficient knowledge what to do, what to see. So there is a gap completely, and if a junior tries to do something, then there is a blockade. So with that, there is a lot of politics also, and leg pulling also. So with that, then things become more complicated, and we lack or we miss out on the goal that we are trying to do. So definitely, I believe as a data engineer that there is a lack of skilled data engineers with costing knowledge in the logistics industry and in global supply chain market. There are a lot of people who are doing, yeah, kind of bullshit work, but that is a kind of different discussion. Okay, each shipping or logistic company has a transport management software. The planners use, fleet managers or the country managers use these transport management softwares. This management software creates a large data, and it's extremely important to review this data, find good KPIs, and from this data, a lot of insights could be attained. Like, okay, at how many points the driver was standing still, at how many points the driver was waiting or resting, how long did a driver work. So all these questions could be answered whether he was driving economically or not, and then costing could be done so that to find the real net profit, and this will give a visibility of the networks and what we are doing. At the end, it will prevent loss to the company and may be helpful in renegotiating the contract prices with the customers, because or the clients, because in shipping industry the client always tries to overpower the logistics firms or the shipping companies. But there we need intelligence, and we need to speak out, okay, these are the areas where we're incurring loss and you have to pay for it, because this is the work that I am doing for you. So without smartness in work and further growing competition, it is very difficult to have sustainability in the business. So the skilled data engineer doesn't cost much, but people are smart enough. The companies are investing in many other tools and consulting firms. In fact, they're rather losing more money rather than hiring a skilled data engineer who can do the same work easily and in a very efficient manner. Okay, but things are not in many people's hand, so everyone is answering to someone. So it's complicated. Let me leave it to that.